Okay, for retracts, I ended up buying the retracts that are the best you can get. Go to schulmanaviation.com and look under their retracts for the ones that refer to the Nitroplanes Falcon 120. And I ended up buying the combo, which is the whole kit. It's everything is in it, which is even includes the brakes and all the servos and all the hoses and everything that you need is in there. One thing I did do is, with recommendation from Billy D, by the way, at Florida Jets, he even said that he found that was a good recommendation, so I took his word and had these things shortened. I had them shortened by about that much. They were, look how long it was. It was crazy long, so I took 1.25 inches off there. You could probably even take a little more if you need to, but I figured 1.25 inches is safe. And it did the same to the front nose wheel. So took it down to a machine shop. They charged me about 50 bucks, handed it back to me in 2 days, and look, it's like factory. They did an awesome job. Also the nose wheel, 1.25 inches off of that, and you can see it's now down to the size it really should be, because it was, you know, way up here. It was stupid high. So that's probably a little advice that you may want to take. One other thing I did do, the wheels that come on these things are like steel. They're designed for turbine aircraft. They're very, very hard, so you can land and not rip the things up. They're also very heavy. Because I'm going with a lighter weight, I hope to come out with about a 12-pound aircraft. Every little bit counts. I took the wheels off and I swapped them for a firm but lightweight foam. And the center hub had to be cut, so I just took the tire, laid it over the top of the foam wheel, used a light up here so I didn't have any shadows, and really centered it up well, drew a circle inside, took my razor knife, very sharp blade razor knife, a brand new blade by the way, and just sat there and just kept going around it real slow. And then flipped it over, did the same thing, and then the hub popped right out. And surprisingly enough, I got them pretty darn centered. Really kind of surprised myself. So now I have a much lighter weight wheel on there, and it's a little more cushion. It's not too light. If I ever go turbine or decide that I'm wearing the tires down too much, I've got these puppies I can put right back on there again. So a little tip for you. All right, all the ribs inside need to be glued. All the pieces you can get to in the wing need to be glued. Anything you can put your eyes on this airplane needs to be glued. It was pretty flimsy when it came out of the box. So what you want to use is Hysol. This stuff, don't even think about using anything else. This stuff is fantastic. It's model 9462, made by Loctite. You can buy it at schulmanaviation.com. It's about 14 bucks per tube. You'll also need to buy one of these guns too. It's a one-time purchase, but this is an extremely sturdy gun. It's the only one you'll ever buy the rest of your life. But you've got to have it, and they're not cheap. They're about 35 bucks, but you have to have it. You also have to buy these mixer tips. This is like a two-part epoxy, but it's nothing like epoxy, trust me. Once you use this Hysol, if you've never used it before, you'll have smiles on your face ear to ear. This is the most fantastic stuff you've ever messed with. It comes out like toothpaste. It doesn't sag. This particular model number doesn't sag. Hardens in about hardens in about 2 hours and is fully usable in about 4. It's just amazing stuff, amazing. You will never use epoxy again. You'll probably never use CA again. This is just incredible stuff. I'm using it for everything. You just drop it in here, close it up, ready to go. And what's cool about this is you can use some of it, just take and twist this off, tip comes out, put a new tip in there, and keep using it. So the tip acts like a preserver for you, if you will. Definitely get this Hysol, it's fantastic stuff. You'll need about 3 tubes of this if you do the aircraft in a really good fashion. So at least 2 tubes, at least 2 tubes. All right, let's talk canopy. When you get the canopy, it's going to have a nice large piece of plastic hanging off the bottom of it. You'll need to slice it off. So what I did is I took a razor knife, and you can look at the edge of the plastic. They'll put a crease in it. And mine came with a crease in one side and perfectly smooth on the other side. I saw no crease whatsoever. So I ended up using this blue tape, ran down the side with the one with the crease so I could get an idea what it looked like. And then I duplicated that distance from the window on the other side that didn't have a crease. And I found even though the crease was there, that the blue tape really helped out. It gave me a line to follow with my razor knife. You can cut this with a pair of scissors. It's faster, but what I found was that the area that I did cut with a pair of scissors ended up being real jagged because it's fairly brittle plastic. And the scissors did not cut really smooth. As you were squeezing the scissors down, you could hear the plastic making this little kind of a soft cracking noise. And when you stop, you could reach in there and rub it with your finger, and you could feel the little cracking edges. So I decided to stop, put a brand new blade in my razor knife. Brand new blades make a big difference. And then I sat there and slowly went down the edge of the blue tape, really slow. And I'm not looking to cut through into the plexiglass or the Lexan. All I'm looking to do is to score it, make a score that goes in maybe a quarter way into the Lexan, all the way around the whole thing. And then when you get to the edges, be very careful, because I found it very difficult to score even with the tape. When you're making a curve, it tends to want to follow to the left or to the right, and it just doesn't want to go straight. So that's where you want to change the blade, put a brand new blade on just for the curves. It'll make a difference. And really take your time. Maybe score it 5 or 6 or 7 times in just a quarter of an inch. Just sit there and slice it real slow. And then you can take and break it backward, and you can see that it'll crack off. And the areas that it doesn't crack all the way off, just bend it backwards so you can see inside the crack of the Lexan, and then use the tip of the razor knife to keep scoring a little more until it completely comes off. Just definitely take your time, because one of the things you'll find is looks like it's nice and soft, but this thing is brittle as can be. You can real easily ruin your evening because you'll take and crack it up the side, and then you're screwed because you can't get another one of these. The canopy is very flimsy, as you can see, and you need to have some structure inside of it to give it some rigidity. So what I've decided to do is to take this balsa wood, which is not ply. You can see I've cracked it here. It's regular balsa wood, but it's just a little bit firmer than normal balsa wood, and it also has the ability to whoops, I was going to say to bend, but it also has the ability to crack, which is fine. But anyway, it has the ability to bend a little bit, but it is just balsa wood. My plan is to take and cut a piece, because this stuff here is thin enough it'll cut with a pair of scissors. I'm going to lay it right through here, mark it underneath, cut it with a pair of scissors. What you want to end up with is one initial piece that you can build off of. And I'm going to build right on out. Okay, now I've painted it all black. Ran a little bead of high sol around it for strength. Made a little cockpit. Got a seat and a man in there, a pilot. And I made a nice little balsa dashboard. Put some gauges and stuff on it. The seat's all made out of balsa. Just spray painted it flat gray and sprayed everything else flat black. And it came out pretty nice. To put the canopy on, I had to add all these weights to the bottom. Just took a little piece of fishing line and added some weights, some CA. That's all temporary. So that way when I set it down, all the weights will keep it from bowing, because it wants to bow up a little bit. There we go. So now it's held down real tight by the weights. I'm going to put some silicone, just barely put a glob and peek it up like whipped cream, how it peaks. I'm going to do about 2 or 3 here, one on either end, so that when I put the cover on, I'll put it on, spread it open a little bit, and then let it pop. And now the silicone will stick to it on the inside. And then I'm going to run some tape along here to hold it exactly where it needs to be and let it dry overnight. That will allow the inside to at least get adhered to this. Then we'll take, and once it's adhered nice and straight, we can flip it over and run a bead of high sol around the inside for permanency. All right, here we go. Now that you've allowed it to dry overnight, taking the tape off, you can pick it up and from underneath run a bead of high sol real lightly down in this groove that you left all the way around. You first want to make sure you sand this thing. One thing I left off previously was you want to make sure you sand this. You can't leave it smooth. The high sol won't stick to it. So you want to sand this before you even start on the previous step. Then run a little tiny bead of high sol down in here and then wipe it with a rag so it pushes it right down inside the groove here all the way around, because you don't want to leave any on the outside. That way just that edge piece of high sol will stick, and you can use high sol or even silicone. You want something that's going to stick to this plastic. Anything's going to stick to the wood, but you want to make sure you use something that sticks to the plastic. Actually, this is on one step ahead. I ended up using silicone in there. You can see where I've already wiped it on, because I didn't sand it. It's my fault, and the high sol didn't stick, so I ended up using silicone. Now here's one other thing else that you want to do. To be able to hold it on to the front of the airplane, I took a piece of very thin plywood, cut it, and just high soled it down. Ran a nice thick piece of high sol over it so that it made it very strong, but yet flexible. That's one thing that's nice about high sol, is it is very strong, but yet it stays flexible. And it fits right up under here. So when you put the canopy on, you can just go like this, and it fits on there. Then you can just put a latch in the back. At this point in time, all I'm going to do just for test flying it is put a piece of that wing tape back here just to hold the back on. And then if everything flies good, I'll go ahead and spend the time, put a little latch back here. Also notice that it's already cracked. When I mentioned earlier how brittle this thing is, it feels like it's soft. I just barely put it in there and went like this, and it just snapped. So, and also I had it crack here too. This thing is very, very cheap. So be aware how cheap it really is. And I had to end up putting a bead of high sol and plywood right along the inside, because this thing actually did the same thing. This little crack, I just barely bent it and it snapped right here. So another thing to be aware of.